Right, so this new versioning system just isn't it. I'm normally terribly positive about Mojang and their decisions, but I can't help but complain. But I also can't help but give a nuanced take, which is why the video will start with my praise, then my gripes, and then suggestions on how to improve the new system. Though, this new system is not going to change if I'm being realistic. It's here to stay. So really, there's no point to this video. But if we all die anyway, what's the point of anything? Guys, I'm so happy they removed the scourge of the 1 dot. I tilted so hard in my last version number video over this. I'm so glad to see it gone. It was so useless, it never changed, and why should I say 121 when I can just say 21? Then I'll be saying 26. But that's besides the point, and you knew that already. You're watching a video about Minecraft version numbers, you nerd. Though I'm making one, which is, you know, worse, but shit, don't say that. The year being part of the versioning is probably good, but for me, it's hard to tell whether this will decrease or increase confusion when looking back at old version numbers. Like, will it make it harder for me to remember a specific update? I think only time will tell, but I'd enjoy the YouTube comments to tell. That's right, I'm trying to increase the engagement on this video. But also, I do genuinely enjoy reading comments and seeing what people have to say. But what I have to say is that content updates and hotfixes are finally separated. This is good for reducing confusion for hardcore and casual fans, but especially modders and data packers. However, to begin the gripes, Bedrock's non-drop releases still use the same number that drops use, which is bad twofold in my opinion, of course. First, much confusion will be caused, especially for casual players, on what number the big content drops are versus minor updates and whatnot, which is basically an issue we already had with the versioning that just isn't being fixed with this new system. Secondly, it desyncs Java and Bedrock's version numbers when it comes to the drops, meaning we still can't easily refer to drops by the version number, because something like Mounts of Mayhem will be Bedrock 25.70 but Java 25.4. But this stark difference is much unlike how the system doesn't allow for differentiating drops and large updates, in which case, Mojang, I've got questions. Should we just call drops updates now if there isn't a distinction between the two? Are we even going to get major updates anymore? I'm not sure I enjoy the implications of removing a major update number. However, something they didn't remove was a 0 at the end of Bedrock's numbers, which gets incremented up for hotfixes without having a separating dot. While I understand, or at least have just assumed the intent is to differentiate Bedrock and Java's numbers, it feels unneeded, and I'll elaborate on that in a second. You may step to me and say it's not 25.10, it's 25.10, and then 25.11, then 25.12, which is actually intuitive, as is just how decimals work. But might I remind you, strawman argument, that the versioning isn't decimals. The versioning uses dots as separators, not as decimal points. So at least to me, 25.10 reads as 25.10 and is thus unintuitive. Although I will admit, to a more casual fan, it could be more intuitive, but like surely they're gonna read it and think the 10 is a 10 and not a 1 that happens to have a 0 because there hasn't been a hotfix yet, you know? And then when there's 25.11, they would reasonably assume it's the next drop. Like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels better to just separate it like how they're already doing with Java. And so to begin my suggestions, we should drop the final 0 and have a separate dot for hotfixes. However, the strawman I created earlier may now say that the version numbers for Java and Bedrock aren't distinct, and that will cause confusion. And I'll say, good job, strawman, I agree. Which my solution is to add a J or B to the beginning of the numbers, because I don't see why the number itself needs to tell you the version, when we can add a letter or something at the beginning to distinguish it. I think this is better than the current clunky way they do hotfix numbers, but if you disagree, please tell me why, because I'd love to understand. The Bedrock Java desync was my biggest issue with the drops version numbers, and it seems the new system does not care to fix this issue. One must assume Mojang wants updates to be referred to in name not number, in which case the desync is fine, I guess, but many people, me, want to use the number to refer to updates, so please let us have it synced. Which, on that, there's 3 approaches I can think of, each with pros and cons of their own. The first approach is to make Bedrock's minor non-drop updates use the hotfix number. This syncs the versions, but pushes back the issue of confusion, because now it's confusing if an update is to fix a bug or if they're adding new stuff. This is an inelegant solution, so I don't love it, but I still would prefer it, though I'm biased because I'm largely a Java player, so the annoyance it causes would not really affect me. If I played Bedrock, I would not want this. Something I would want, to an extent, is making Bedrock's minor non-drop updates use a new and separate to the drop number. This syncs Java and Bedrock and reduces confusion as everything has its own place. But it definitely bloats the version number as it'd become 26.1.0, and the O would really only tend to range from 0 to 1. Though, now you can tell the difference between Java and Bedrock's numbers without any extra fluff, which is nice. My final approach would be to have drops on Java skip to the number Bedrock is on. While this syncs Java and Bedrock, it will cause confusion version, as Java's drop number will go up in 2s, where the in-betweens just don't exist. So I do understand why they allowed a desync, because no solution comes without clear downsides. Unless I'm stupid and have missed something, in which case tell me. But for now, I'll tell you my final suggestion. If major updates bigger than drops are going to happen, we should probably change the year at the start to be the major version number, so 21 at the moment. Because we stayed on 21 for all of the drops, it must be important to differentiate drops and major updates. Though, if major updates are not going to happen, this isn't really an issue, but to me, it is a shame. Though, brief tangent, I suspect major updates are not ruled out, they'll just use the same number as drops. But that feels like the opposite issue of drops upping the 21 major version number, like you're underselling a proper major update as a small drop. But it'll probably be a while till we get a non-drop update if I'm being realistic. Anyway, that's all I have to say. The new version system is an improvement in my opinion, but there are still flaws and it certainly does not fix all the issues with the old system. I am a bit disappointed with what we got, but I am happy we don't have to deal with the first 6 syllables, 121 dot, being useless. If you'd like to see the ideas I had for a new versioning system, that video is on screen. It was made before Minecraft Live and definitely before the new system, so keep that in mind. Alrighty, hope I see you again. Or rather, you see me again.